All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a method that completely flips the script on the traditional classroom. It's called cooperative language learning, and it's all about turning the tough job of learning a new language into a team sport.
I want you to think back for a second, back to your own language classes. Remember that vibe? You've got rows of desks, one teacher up front, and this feeling, this pressure, right? To be the fastest, the smartest, the one who gets the best grade. It was all about you versus everyone else. But for a long, long time, educators have been asking themselves, is there a better way to do this? A way that focuses on building people up instead of just ranking them. And that's exactly where we start, by completely rethinking the language classroom.
So, what if we just change the game entirely? Instead of this lonely sprint where you're all running your own race, what if learning a language was more like, I don't know, soccer or basketball? A game where you have to rely on your teammates, where communication is everything, and where you win or you lose together. That's the big idea right there.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of this whole team approach. What exactly is the cooperative learning method? Where did this idea even come from, and what's it really trying to do?
So, here's the official definition, but I want you to focus on two words: socially structured. This is so important. This isn't just about throwing a few students into a group and saying, okay, talk. No. It's a system, a carefully designed one, where learning literally cannot happen unless every single person in that group is actively exchanging information in a structured way.
And believe it or not, this isn't some brand new idea. Its roots go way back, all the way to the early 20th century with thinkers like John Dewey. But it really caught fire in the 60s and 70s. And what's fascinating is that it wasn't just some academic theory. It was a real-world solution to a huge social challenge in the US at the time: school integration. Educators desperately needed a way to get students from different backgrounds to work together and build positive relationships. This method gave them a way to do just that.
So you can see, the goals here are so much bigger than just memorizing vocabulary. The number one goal? To swap out that feeling of competition for one of cooperation. But right alongside that, it's about developing critical thinking, building real communication skills, and maybe most importantly, creating a classroom that feels less stressful, more supportive, a place where you're not afraid to try and maybe fail a little.
So, how on earth does this actually work? Well, that gets us to the core principles, because remember what I said, this isn't just random group work, it's a system, and it has these really specific essential ingredients that make the whole thing click. And this is the point I really need to drive home. We have to get rid of this idea that it's just group work. We've all been in those projects, right? Where one person does everything and everybody else just chills. Cooperative learning is specifically engineered to make that impossible. The entire task is set up so that the group's success is completely dependent on every single member doing their part.
And this is how it's done. Researchers have boiled it down to these 5 pillars, the absolute bedrock of real cooperative learning. You need all 5 of these for the magic to happen. You need positive interdependence, individual accountability, smart group formation, actually teaching social skills, and having a clear structure for everything. This quote, this just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly explains that first ingredient, positive interdependence. It's the whole all for one and one for all thing. The tasks are designed so that everyone is linked together. You sink or you swim as a team. What's good for one of you is good for all of you. So what does this actually look like in a classroom? Well, a classic technique is called jigsaw. Imagine a group of 4 students needs to learn about a city. Student A gets a paper about its history, student B gets one about its economy, student C learns about the culture, and student D gets the modern challenges. Each one is now the only expert on their topic. For the group to succeed, every single one of those experts has to teach their piece of the puzzle to the others. See? You can't succeed alone.
Here's another really common one. Think, pair, share. It's so simple, but so effective. The teacher asks a question. First, everyone just thinks quietly to themselves. That's the individual accountability piece. Then, you turn to a partner and discuss your ideas. Finally, the pair share their best thoughts with the whole class. It's a structured way to make sure every single voice gets heard.
Now, when you start working like this, it's pretty obvious that the roles of everyone in that room, especially the teacher, have to change. I mean, they have to change a lot. Just look at this comparison. The teacher goes from being the sage on the stage, the person with all the answers, to being the guide on the side. In this kind of classroom, the teacher's main job becomes being a facilitator.
They're designing the activities, setting up the groups, and then moving around the room like a coach, helping teams figure things out and stay on track.
And for the students, man, the shift is just as big. You're no longer just sitting there passively trying to beat the person next to you. Instead, you become an active collaborator, a teammate. You're not just responsible for your own learning, but you're also responsible for helping your teammates learn. You're basically in the driver's seat of your own education.
All right, so with all these massive changes to how the classroom runs, what's the bottom line? Let's take an honest look at the benefits and, well, some of the trickier parts of making this method work. The advantages are seriously compelling. Study after study shows that when it's done right, CLL boosts academic achievement for everybody. It helps students build real, positive friendships. It sharpens those communication and critical thinking skills they'll need for life. And it just makes students less anxious and more confident. That's huge.
But let's be real, it's not some magic wand. It takes a massive mental shift for both the teachers and the students. Some research also asks, hey, does this work equally well for beginners as it does for advanced students? And the biggest knock against it is that its success hinges entirely on that careful planning. Badly planned group work can honestly be even worse than a boring old lecture.
So if you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, please let it be this. Cooperative language learning is not just group work. It is a disciplined, highly structured system that is designed from the ground up to make students truly, deeply learn together. That structure, that's the whole secret sauce.
And that kind of leaves us with a final question to chew on. We've been talking about language class, sure, but just think about it. How could this idea, this shift from me versus you to a structured us, how could that change other subjects? What would a cooperative math class look like? Or history? Or science? It's a really interesting thought. Thanks so much for tuning in.